and one of the biggest questions that we'll certainly touch on in future chapters here, but there's transphobic people out there who will say that an older man will say that he's trans for the day just to walk into a little girl's room, and which is still illegal. No one's advocating for that, but with it as not as an activist now, just outside of that, we look at that situation and it sounds to me like, all right, it's not so momentary. It's not so much of, oh, I'm trans all of a sudden. It's years,
Yes.
years of thinking of this, years
Yes.
of having to deal with it.
Yes.
And so, forgive me, but everything you're saying in this interview is just tearing down that argument of I can just choose one day to be this way.
Right. The bathroom issue is annoying with me. I've battled, people's transphobic opinions ad nauseum now, and I get a little bit better with each, passing phase, but I've got to tell them, and I do. Do you honestly think that I'm going to go through the pain of loss, of rejection, discrimination, the expense that I put out to make my body the way it is? You think I go through all of this just so I can go into a public restroom? If I'm going into a public restroom at all, I'm going for one reason, people. I don't care. I'm in and out of there. But I also combat those transphobes and homophobes with this. And it's not easy for me to talk about, but we have more of a problem with males molesting children. I was a victim at one time as well. So we have that problem to really deal with. The transgender community is not as big as it seems, and we're still a very small percentage in the United States and in the world. Yet there are people out there with their sexual misconduct, and you could be label yourself as a straight married man. I've seen it. I've lived it. It's a horrible thing. So let's tackle that problem. Let's talk about that problem before you go talking about a trans person walking into a woman's room just so they can molest your child. I'm offended with that. I'm a father, and I wear that title proudly. That's a title that I acquired many years ago. I was viewed as a father. I have two beautiful sons, and I will never want to give that experience back. I have grandchildren, both male and female. How dare you, even imply that I'm doing this so I can walk into a public bathroom. Of all things, I try my best to avoid using public bathrooms. They're disgusting. Have you looked at one lately? Yeah, I'd rather not.
I mean, like with that, so two questions. I mean, you mentioned that you're a father. Do your children call you their father, or do they
Not
prefer
yet.
to call you their mother now?
No, my youngest son who talks to me, he still calls me pops, and I'm okay. Just call me. The labeling for me, and it's everybody's different, Matt. Labeling for me is not a big deal. I don't let that hurt me. I just want the love of the people that I grew up with, that I raised, that I learned with and loved unconditionally. If that's what makes you feel comfortable, I will allow that. Going back, I do like the pronouns she, her, hers, but I don't want to force that on you. If you're in my life and you lived with the person before, I'm not going to, crucify you for that. I just want you to, to accept me and respect uh, the person that I've evolved into.
I think it's a personal decision of trying to figure out, does the person you're talking to respect you in general, and you know any kind of wrong pronouns could be determined off of that and based on that amount of respect. Um, I mean, with the bathroom debate, before we really dive into that, I think it's really important to ask, what is it like being a trans person, and you've gone through a period of time when you've had to walk into male restrooms before you came out fully. What goes through your mind? What kind of emotions are brought up? And the transphobes here will say that you're just acting, and you should be forced to enter that restroom. So what does it feel like to actually go through that?
Well, I can remember going into specifically woman's restroom for the first time in an office building. Now, there were times where I've gone into them in clubs up in West Hollywood or Studio City, and it's like everybody was on that same page anyway. But going into, and like I said, I try to avoid whenever I can, but there are some times, dear, where nature calls and you've got to answer. So it was a very nervous time for me, very nervous. I didn't know if another woman from the office building was going to, to enter. And the same time I was there, once I was in that stall and the door was shut, all I could see is my ankles. They can't tell, right? Then you got to exit that stall. It was my biggest fear that somebody would come in and clock me. But my very first experience, and I'll never forget it, I'm telling you about it right now. As I exited the stall, another woman walked in. And I'm like, okay, here it comes. Because, I wasn't 100% sure that I wasn't going to get clocked or questioned. But as that woman approached me, she just greeted me like any other woman. It's like, hey, how you doing? How was your day? And me trying to put on my best feminine voice says, oh, it was fine. Thanks for asking, or whatever, So the encounter was very, but nerve wracking at first, but it turned out to be a good one. And ever since then, I've never experienced any pushback, any questioning whatsoever. And I know that it's not that way for everybody because we all transition in a different way. Some souls, they wish that they could, pass under the radar or be unclockable. Unfortunately, a lot of late in life transitioners deal with issues like the male pattern baldness and things of that nature, things that, you can't stop unless you're taking, whatever medications you are to try to reverse it. Some people are born, very bulky, but so are women. We tend to forget that. Women's bodies come in all shapes and sizes, just like men's bodies come in all shapes and sizes. So crossing over, it may not be a big deal, but, going into the the ladies' room for me has been something that I don't really look forward to doing, but it happens. And I got to say, I've not had any conflicts from the fathers waiting outside to whatever, or the husband waiting outside. No issues. And I'm thankful for that. I hate to know that there are people less fortunate who do have to, put up with the bigoted remarks and the hateful remarks and things of that nature. And I certainly I'm with you all in that, I wouldn't want anybody harmful in a bathroom with my child. And it's, it's going to happen somewhere along the lines, but I don't. I think that these people who fear it must know that we, transgender women aren't out to do anything other than just to go relieve ourselves and get the heck out of there. It's no big deal.
I mean, it's, forgive me, but a lot of homophobic and transphobic arguments are seemingly similar to what we want, and somehow they use our own arguments against us of, I don't want a man in a woman's restroom. I personally, I've gone into gender neutral restrooms and I don't really care, because I go in there to do my business and I get out. I don't care. But if I had a child, I wouldn't want some big hairy guy next to my little girl, and none of us are advocating for that. But at the same time, they'll use that against us, and it's very effective in their scare tactics. But we also look at, all these situations where, like, we want the same thing as they do, but yet somehow they're using it against us. Like, how well does that work in your opinion, and of that scare tactic, and how do we overcome that?
Well, that is a tough nut to crack. I don't have the answer. I don't know. I have very rarely, if at all, can even recall being in a situation whereas I was going into a restroom with a young child. I'm still very nervous about what that may bring. But then again, I also like to think that, I have a very feminine look that I don't get read. So it's not an issue with anybody. I think I have an appearance that's very welcoming or very gentle or
So you
whatnot.
think,
I'm always smiling, always greeting people, always looking them in the eye and going, I'm just like you. I just want to get in and out of here. No big deal. I'm nervous about it when the situation arises, and it hasn't that I can recall. I kind of dread it a little bit.
so you think the more that someone can express their gender through clothing and appearance, the less nervous you get when you enter a restroom?
I would think so. I would, if I didn't have the appearance that I was blessed with, and let's say that I was I look like a hulking body, strong jawline with the 6 o'clock shadow starting to come in at the end of the day, I would be scared. I can't imagine being in that situation. But yet there are trans sisters out there. We all come in different shapes and sizes and body types and such, but the heart and the mind is still there. We're gentle souls. All we want to do is just live our lives the way that we want to live them, and we don't want to hurt anybody. It's like, it's unfortunate that there have been cases, I'm sure, documented, whereas it was a man in a dress, but boy, do I hate saying that, but it could be true. But then again, there's that man dressed as a man who is playing footsies with you underneath the airport, bathroom stall. They're all over the place. And why just single out, transgender women who are just trying to go in there and do their business and get out? We'd rather not go in, like I said.
I know one of my friends who's a straight ally, cisgender, she mentioned to me that we should be looking at these situations where girls enter restrooms and they bully each other in middle school, and these situations, it's like there's a lot of other problems in the restroom to worry about that we should be dealing with first, bullying included, and molestation of people who really want to go in there and molest and assault kids, before we worried about a trans person just trying to go to the bathroom.
Yeah. So yeah, there are problems all over the place. I mean, we're just put what we want to underneath the microscope and blow that up, if you make it an issue.
Still not enough rainbows? Click here to see more weekly episodes of Powered by Rainbows, Semester 4, only on MHP TV.